Ahoy hoy gang, if this is your first time with us, welcome, and if you're joining us from a previous video, hey, we love to see it, and I hope you're doing well. It's Season 10, the first season of the TBS era. So, what were my top 5 episodes of an adventure that was just beginning? Well, there's only one way to find out, so it's time to dive on into Season 10. Number 5, LGB Steve. Between the cold open with Klaus and Haley to the absolutely beautiful A story of Steve just trying to figure out what's going on as he's just tossed around back and forth, there is so much to love in LGB Steve, and it was the first time that I really started to sink into the idea of TBS American Dad. This was not going to be the same as your Fox era. This is going to be wilder, more out there, more creative, and it's willing to take bigger and bigger risks. Yes, the demographic is much smaller, going from broadcast TV to cable, but it also gives them a ton more freedom, and I think that's perfectly exemplified in LGB Steve, as well as I would say all the other episodes that we're going through, except for the next one, which does feel like peak Fox era. But LGB Steve, ironically, the B story I could not care less about. It's the one with Stan and Francine and Jesus is fixing everything, and they absolutely hate it until the point that he's just like Kamehameha waving everything away, and it's like, it's fine. I think it was actually a Hadoken. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. None of that matters. But when you have Roger as the day manager, when you have Steve just trying to fit in, and then Haley just completely bungling it at every step of the way, and they're like, nah, you can come in, but we want Steve. Steve's our one. We're gonna teach Steve how to pickle. And it's just like, you know what? I like that. The musical number was fun. There's a ton of stuff to love in LGB Steve. And honestly, it's something that I kind of registered while watching this episode, but the animation kind of went up in quality. I don't know. It's fun. TBS era American Dad is not trying to overcomplicate itself, and it's just a celebration of the characters. I genuinely believe this is one of the strongest guest appearances, as well as one of the strongest Steve episodes of the entire TBS era. I keep coming back to this episode, and it's very easy to see why. It's just good television. Number 4, Roger passes the bar. I know the last episode of the Fox era was Blog Snarst a love story, and I get Kim Kardashian is one hell of a guest star for any series. So if you're gonna go out on a bang, like, that is how you go out. But I don't know, when I was watching Roger Passes the Bar, I looked at this and I was like, you know what? You could put Stan's little, and that was American Dad, like, book moment in this episode, and I think it would also work, because it's literally Roger passing Roger's place on. Now, of course, he does get it back, and it's a whole thing, it doesn't really matter, but it is a fun episode of American Dad. The B story with Steve and the registered offender that they're helping with renovations is fine. It's, it's funny enough, but it's not why you watch. I genuinely believe this is one of Roger's strongest episodes in the entire show. And I know, again, it's like saying, man, The Simpsons couldn't be anything without Dan Castellaneta as Homer. Like, I can't imagine, like, yeah, and Water is Wet. But, like, Seth MacFarlane, for everything people say about him, it's like, the man is creative. The man is an incredibly talented singer. He's an incredibly talented voice actor. And whether you want to admit it or not, he is a fantastic writer. And I genuinely believe that he really put in a ton of effort with Roger here. There are very few episodes where I could ever say that he might be phoning it in. And even then, it's, if I can only think of like 2 or 3 examples across over 300 episodes, that just kind of shows what a professional he is. And I don't know. I feel like we take it for granted. There's so many episodes of Family Guy. There's so many episodes of American Dad. But at the end of the day, we have to remember that a lot of this has come from the creativity of just a small group of people over, 20 to almost 30 years now. It's just, there's so much there to love. And I don't know, between Roger just going dive on in over and over and over again, to like his barfly Nick, who just, he gets all sobered up, he's like, no, 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 we can't have that. No, I'm not letting it turn into a TGI Fridays. Like, it's just, yes, more of this, please. And then, you know, A Boy Named Michael's fine. Blog Snarst is my least favorite. So in my eyes, of the three, this is my send-off Fox episode before we get to TBS era. Number 3, A Star is Reborn. Look, not only do we have the absolute vocal chameleon that is Kate Mulgrew, it just also shows what an absolute Trekkie Seth MacFarlane is. I mean, not only does he have Patrick Stewart regularly on the show, but now he has Captain Janeway in a guest role. I don't know, seems sus. I'm not saying the Orville just took a bunch of TNG episodes and updated them, but I ain't not saying that neither. No, I really love A Star is Reborn, and not only is Kate Mulgrew amazing in it, but you also get one of the last appearances of, you know, Stan Lee, you get Carl Reiner, Mickey Rooney. It's just, there is so much to love here, there's so much heart, and then, you know, hey, let's go see what the rest of the family is doing. Oh, it's just Roger crate training Stephen Haley because they took his episodes of Bones off the DVR, and that's just, again, it is a fantastical A story and a B story that's realistic with a fantastical twist, and I love those kinds of episodes. I love the extremes that this episode goes to, while also just, yeah, still being great classic American Dad. I could watch A Star is Reborn, honestly, 10 times in a row, notice something new every time, and not complain a second of watching it. I genuinely love watching this episode again and again and again. It is the definition of a comfort show for me. A Star is Reborn is just, yeah, it's another great celebration of the show. They're doing wild things, they understand they're on TBS, and they are taking it and running with it. I mean, this episode, people don't think about this, but this episode is almost a decade old. It came out in 2015. Like, people tend to forget that American Dad's been on TBS longer than it has been on Fox. Like, it's genuinely jarring to look back at this and go, oh, right, this was only in season 10 of 18. And it's still one of the best episodes that holds up the strongest out of the entire 300+ episode batch. From the meat in gelatin, to the weird fascination with where Bones dropped off, to even just that homage to old Hollywood with Marble Madness, or Marble Mumble, or whatever it is, who cares? It's Hollywood! It's just, yeah, no, A Star is Reborn not only builds on Stan and Francine's relationship, shows that they love each other through generations, but it also just gives us a really fun, really nothing Roger, Steve, and Haley episode, where of course he got them the right state quarters, they would have known! Number 2, Manhattan Magical Murder Mystery Tour! If there's 2 things you ever learn about me, one is I really enjoy Robert Wool. That's a lie, but I do enjoy him. I find him fascinating. And the second is I adore vignette episodes. I love when so many different things are going on at the same time, and I adore when everyone has enough to do. And Manhattan Magical Murder Mystery Tour hits on every single note I need it to hit, while also just being really good American Dad. You've got Wheels in the Leg Man. You've got Angelica Houston. You've got Francine being F.R. Rancine in softcore murder mystery. All of that's amazing. But that's not it. You also have Stan and Haley going on this just absolutely twisted New York tour by Robert Wool, and I adore it. Every bit of it is just amazing. Again, this show would not shine as brilliantly if the voice talent wasn't as good or the writing wasn't as sharp. It's just, this is an episode that could have fallen on its face at any point, and then you just have that guy whispering, I put that ass to sleep. And it's just like, that's great. That's amazing. That's exactly what I need out of an American Dad episode. That is peak daddage right there. Manhattan Magical Murder Mystery Tour is The episode I try and get people to watch if they only watch Fox episodes of American Dad and they're really hesitant about watching anything from the TBS era, because it's such a strong example of what the TBS era is, while still doing something like Fart Break Hotel, which was in the later but still the healthy part of the Fox era. It still has that reminiscent memory of what old American Dad was, but this is an evolution on that formula. I don't know. Again, I swore that was James Patterson every time I watched it. I thought they actually got James Patterson, and they didn't. They got probably the best impressionist possible, because I thought it was him. Legitimately. Like how everybody thinks it was DMX in the insurance stuff, and it wasn't. Like, that was me. That was me with him. But it's a wonderful episode, and I'm really upset it doesn't get more attention. Number 1, American Fung! This will probably be my most controversial top 5, much less number 1 picks. But I really, really love American Fung. I adore meta-comedy. I adore the idea of doing something so weird and fanciful just for the sake of doing it. I am a huge Andy Kaufman fan, so I love that sort of experimental comedy. You know, that Tim and Eric, that Check It Out with Dr. Steve Brule. I wish I could talk about that on this show. It's just, it's good stuff. And so, like, American Fung, like I said in my longer video where I go way more in depth, it's just, even from the credits, they are in on the joke. They are going all in on this idea that American Dad has been bought, and he is in the credits. And at first you're like, oh, he's just in the credits. He might pop up here and there. And then about halfway through the episode, everything just falls off the rails. But it's all intentional. That's the thing that makes meta-comedy so hard, and that's what makes it so underappreciated, is that to the untrained eye, and I know this makes me sound super elitist, but I promise you, it's not. It's once you study meta-comedy, once you study experimental comedy, like I Think You Should Leave, or again, Tim and Eric, you start to understand that tempo. And when you're watching American Fung, it never breaks that tempo. And that tempo is something that is usually set up by like live action actors because it's easier to get those different emotions across. However, this just really hangs on the vocal performances, and they stick the landing every time. I love whenever Fung comes on and they're like, Fung Wah water, that's so refreshing. And just all the different cuts, and it's just, it's, if The Simpsons did it or Family Guy did it, I feel like they wouldn't let the joke breathe. I feel like it would be all the way straight from the get-go. It would be complete garbage. But American Dad, like I have said 1,000 times, trusts the viewer. It trusts you to just go along for the ride and understand that they know what they're doing. And they do. I've seen people say, like, the Stan and Francine story's not great. I'm like, yes, no, it's really not. But that's so not the point of the episode. The episode as a whole is so experimental. It's one of the very few episodes that actually uses live action elements, and it uses them masterfully. It's just, there is so much to love. And it's much like Blood Crieth Unto Heaven, where I know people are going to go, you are so wrong. It's like, that's fine. I don't care. This isn't your list, it's my list. And if you don't like my list, that's fine too. It's just like, as far as I'm concerned, the Smith family's still dancing in that rice paddy with off-color Mickey Mouse. It's just, I adore American Fung. I adore American Fung in a way that, like, the first time I watched it, I couldn't believe what I watched. That was the only episode of American Dad I watched the premiere, and then I immediately rewound it and watched it again. And I was laughing so hard, I was crying. My buddy and I were pointing out all the different details we were noticing, and it was fantastic. American Fung betrays conventional ideas for the sake of being experimental and weird. And while that's not for everyone, the fact that they did it with such a nuanced and delicate touch shows that the writers of American Dad are absolute pros that need to be commended. Like, I know I've bashed Mike Weitzman a lot, but he is a talented person. He is a very talented writer. Everyone is a talented writer on that show. It's just American Dad has succeeded this long because they make risky episodes like American Fung. And there we have it, gang. That was the first TBS season. Anything you think I was right on? Wrong on? What were your top 5 episodes of the season? Let me know in the comments below. All in all, yeah, the first TBS season was really, really solid and still had that sort of Fox feeling to it without being completely unoriginal. It felt like they were still branching out and trying new ideas, and I am here for it. While next season we'd get the Bazooka Sharks and a bigger Langley, I'm actually very happy with what the first season gave us. But that's going to do it for us here. If you want a more early access content, make sure to join our patron and membership groups, $2 a month, and you can get in on this wonderful list here. Wowie zowie, gang. Thank you all so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay strong, stay you. Know that you matter. Know that you are going to do something incredible. I can feel it. And I'll see you all next time. Goodbye, everybody.